Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fourth version of the female takeover of Word on the Street. I am Jennifer Carpus Romaine, the Executive Director at the Transportation Marketing and Sales Association, and also get to be the guest host of the show. I hope everybody enjoyed that intro video, which I feel like is just me dancing for 2 minutes straight, which is great. But we like to have fun here at Word on the Street, especially the ladies edition. So today we're going to talk about all things of what it's like to be a female in the supply chain, things that we go through, maybe things that our male counterpoints can help us with, but also talking about the challenges of the holiday season and how, even though it's this magical time of year, it can also be really stressful. And how do we manage all of that? So really excited to bring in our female lineup of Word on the Street participants. Our first guest is going to be Regan Daniels, the VP of Product and Revenue Services at Freightvana. Welcome to the show.
Gotta have a sports song. I gotta have a sports song. Thank you for having me, Jennifer.
Thank you for
excited to be here with you today.
I'm super excited to have you here. So one thing that I just really love to do is highlight the women on the show and just let you tell us kind of your intro, your origin story, if you will, in the industry. So what landed you here?
Oh, I am like many others. I have kind of an I accidentally got here story.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in college in Nebraska, where I'm from, and I was working 4 jobs. And my mother thought I was kind of burning the candle at both ends, and she was right. So she suggested I just get one job for a little while and kind of settle down a little bit. So I threw my name in the hat at a temp agency, and they placed me as a legal secretary at a refrigerated trucking company. And I thought, there's 0 chance of me staying here any longer than the summer. I'm going to be a doctor. I was in college to study medicine, right? And I got there and I absolutely just instantly fell in love with the business, of the necessity of it, the importance of it, the people, the pace, the challenges, the complexities, solving problems. I got hooked immediately. And this coming April, I will be celebrating 30 years in this business, which is just nuts, because I still feel like I'm 27. So I stayed at that company for a little while, and then I've had the pleasure of working for 2 of the largest carriers in the nation. And I also was a CEO for a wonderful logistics company in Oregon. And now I have found my home I got to bring up my mug because it's got my logo, Freightvana. I have found home there with great friends, colleagues, really wildly innovative place. And that's what I was looking for. And that's kind of my story.
I love it. It's definitely an industry that will keep you on your toes, and you don't get bored here. So
100%, 100%. And that's what's been nice too, is it attracts all kinds of really incredible people. So you get to learn a lot. And that's my thing. I really like to learn. I love to help. If I'm away from my family, I'm a mother and wife, and I love to be with them, of course. But if I'm away, I want to make sure that I'm helping and learning new things all the time. And so I've been fortunate to have a lot of support in the business to be able to do both asset logistics and then also technology. So I love the opportunity to encourage people to get into it.
Love that. Okay, we're going to welcome in our next guest, who is Whitney Cowell, the AVP of Marketing at KCH Transportation and MSA board member. Welcome to the show, Whitney. You're on mute. You got to unmute yourself.
That's so embarrassing. Hello.
Definitely not the first and won't be the last person who's ever come on muted. So
my dogs are so excited that I'm home. They are just throwing a party.
So tell us, how did you end up in this great industry?
I also fell into the industry. It was 2016, and I'd had a job that was totally different, and it was more of like a contract type of role. And a recruiter from an agency reached out to me. I'd tossed out, at least 200 applications, and ended up working on like the carrier side, so in the fuel card industry. And this October, I just passed my 7 years. Haven't left the supply chain. Don't plan to anytime soon. But I have seen a couple of different areas of the supply chain, from the carrier side, the media side, and now the brokerage side.
Very cool. Bringing in, yes, that's true. Scott joins the show on mute most of the time, like definitely. And then sometimes we'll get muted, like when things happen, and then we forget. It's just part of
I appreciate Scott pioneering that for me.
Yes. Well, and also there's a lot of voices. There'll be a lot of like I have a man working on my bathroom right now. We've gone to the space where it's less loud, but like there's definitely been people who are like, what is happening? I made sure to close my door today too, because people many calls have seen him walking around. There's a man in your house. Yes, I do. Thank you. Anywho, we're going to welcome our next guest into the show, Megan Estrada-Zink, who is a longtime industry professional who is actively seeking work right now. Welcome to the show, Megan.
Hello. How's everyone?
Good. How are you?
Doing okay. Can't complain too much.
This is how I dance on camera, and then they will piece it together. But there's only so many moves you can do sitting down,
Right.
So how are you? Yes. I like snap a lot,
I also have really long fingernails. So people are always asking me, like, how do you do anything with those nails? I'm like, just like how a normal person, but it works.
I mean, I get like chipstick in my ring because I'm lefty. So like when I would get things in my fingernails if I had them that long, for sure. So how are you? Welcome to the show. Tell us your journey in the supply chain.
Yeah, so I'm getting over a cold, so I might sound a little bit more nasally than what I'm used to or what I usually am. So I actually came from the medical field. So I have a medical billing and coding background, and at the time, this was back in 2019, I had a friend of mine that worked for Echo Logistics, and I had been looking for something else just because I felt like doctor's offices in the medical background just were not for me. And it's funny because my degree is in healthcare administration and nutrition, so complete 180 from what I went to school for. So she's like, well, we have open logistics coordinator positions at Echo, why don't you apply? And I was like, okay, I'll shoot my shot and apply. So I did, got in as a logistics coordinator, worked up from a logistics coordinator to an account exec, left Echo, went over to Transportation One. I was there for a little over a year. And then I got recruited over to CDL 1000 by Robert Bain, strongest man in logistics, also a personal friend of mine from the powerlifting realm. So that's how we know each other. And unfortunately, now here I am looking for work because we unfortunately got laid off. And so, yeah, that's basically been my journey. I have worked up from account executive at Echo Logistics to now account manager to now senior account manager on the operations and client experience side. So my background is strong in carrier sales, operations, client experience, business development with warm leads. And that's really what I'm looking for in my next role too. I mean, obviously I'm open to basically whatever, but that is my background for the last 4 years.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. And I just want to point out something very funny. So your blue hair is normally the color of Whitney's hair. And so I love like if you would tell me like, oh, and then Regan has very cool hair too. I was like, I need
it's actually green. So I have green hair right now. Yeah, I know that's bad lighting, but it's green hair.
So I was like, I was like, oh, because I remember like when we were at Manifest, that's how I could tell where Whitney was because her hair was so great, which is so helpful.
I don't get lost. Or if I do, everyone just is like, look for the chick with the green hair. So
yeah,
it kind of helps.
It's so helpful, especially in big crowds. So I appreciate it.
Superhero blue before the conference. Just
I used to have blue hair too. I did blue and I did red before.
So my hair will only take red. Like I've tried every other color and it just appears red. So I've just accepted my fate. But I like it. So that's just a total side note, but I was like, oh, this is so fun. Okay, our next guest coming in is Sharae Moore, who is the founder of the She Trucking Foundation. Welcome to the show.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And this is your personal theme song, right?
Yes.
She gon' take care of her kids. She trucking.
The honor to be among some of the phenomenal women in the industry.
I love it. I want to work on a personal theme song. That's going to be a goal for me moving forward. So
Yeah, that's incredible.
yeah, I love that. We were talking about it in the green room before the show. They're like, "Oh, this is like your song." She's like, "Yes, it is." Love that.
I couldn't pick a better one.
Mhm. So, how are you? How'd you come into the industry? And let's tell us a little bit more about She Trucking.
Well, I've been driving. I started driving semi trucks in 2014. So next year will be 10 years in the industry. And then I was one of the few women in the industry. So I founded She Trucking in 2014. I knew about trucking because my dad is a truck driver. He's been driving for about 15 years. And my mom, she was a bus driver. And so I chose trucking. And I started She Trucking Foundation just to support women in the industry. So now I'm just super committed full time with working for, with helping women in the industry. And I also work for GLCS as well.
Fantastic. I love that story. And when you said your mom was a bus driver, so I asked my son a little bit ago, he's 6.5. I was like, "What do you think mommy does for a living?" And he's like, "You drive a bus." And I'm like, I work from home. At no point have I ever in your entire life, except like going to industry shows, have I ever left the house. Like, how do you think I'm a bus driver? But that is a very cool job that you think. I think that's like what he would like me to be, because that's cooler. He finally has said, understands that I run TMSA, but if you asked him what that meant or what TMSA was or what anything about that meant, he wouldn't know. He just knows that that's what I do. So
was he super disappointed? And I asked that because my kids for the longest time thought that I drove a truck and they thought it was really cool. And then I overheard my daughter one day, she was like, "All mom does is talk and type all day."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she's right. She's right. They were very disappointed that I didn't actually get behind the wheel.
Yeah. Yeah. But he likes when I go to shows and like come home with like dog or like little like trucks and things from the trade shows. He really loves swag. So I will often talk about that. Like if you have swag that can be used for an adult or that I can hand my kids, so I have less like having to go to the store to buy him things. Perfect. There you go. There you go.
Conference attendee.
So good. Okay, we're going to bring in our last guest for today's show, Lori Dunn, who's the COO at Isometric Technologies. Welcome to the show, Lori.
Hi, everyone.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Welcome. And I do want to give a shout out. We were supposed to have Ingrid Brown with us today, but she got pulled into an appointment and isn't able to make it, but we're going to try to get her on the next iteration of the Ladies Word on the Street. But so if you're here to see Ingrid, hopefully you will come next time, but also stay and hang out with us as we continue on our chats. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is I feel like as a woman in the holiday season, it's challenging because I feel like I'm tasked with making things magical, and I'm making cookies, and I'm putting up the Christmas decorations, and I'm organizing the holiday gift parties, and making sure that we're collecting money for the boss's gift, and we're signing the cards that go around in the office. And there's so many things that happen. So I would love to know if that's your experience of the organizing, the potlucks and all of those things that go on, all that feel good stuff that happens both in our homes and in our places we work. I feel like it's normally put on the shoulders of women. Yes, I think we are really great at organizing things, but that can be shared with everybody else. But kind of what are your experiences there, and how do you balance that in the holiday season? Don't all jump at me at once. No one's had to organize a holiday party? I don't believe you. Really?
I don't cook.
Oh.
I can't do what I'm told.
That's great. I love this for you. I have always had to do this. And so I guess then if you haven't had to do it in the one, if you're in the audience and have shared this experience, would love to hear from you guys too. But also, like, how do you manage then just all the extra stuff that goes on in this season? I also feel like in the industry, this is, there's a lot going on right now, and we're being pulled in a lot of different directions. How do we manage? What are some of your like self-care tips through the holidays? What do you guys do to keep yourselves feeling sane?
So my husband is a generous chef, which I love, because I don't have to do most of it. He prefers, I can't follow a recipe. So he's just like, you know what, just let me do it, which is great.
You're so
But
lucky.
in our family, we do the standard holidays and the Jewish holidays. So it is a double down of all the things, which is fun, but incredibly stressful. So for the work side of things, we, instead of trying to plan a party or whatever else, we have another team that kind of does more of the culture and employee engagement stuff. And I just invite everybody to my house. And my husband will make the chili. So this is the second year of doing that, which has been really fun. And we don't worry about cleanup until the next day, and which is also really nice because I'm one of those, I like to have the kitchen clean by the time I go to bed, and so I just let it go for a day. And that seems to be really helpful. And I guess from the business perspective, in marketing, a lot of people want a lot of things around the holidays because it's a very exciting and fun time to speak up to our customers, to give away gifts, to make things special for the operations and sales teams. And so we just plan really, really far in advance. And hopefully by the time December rolls around, we just get to sit back. But I did learn that the hard way last year. So this year was a little bit smoother.
That's so smart. That's exactly what I would say with your first question, Jennifer, kind of party planning and doing all the things. And then going into what you're talking about, Whitney, planning is my cup of tea because I will be insane. I spent probably my entire 30s just trying to be the hostess with the mostest, and I had to have every crumb swept up, and I stole the joy out of all the holidays for myself because I wanted so badly to host and do all the things. But you've got to plan first, prioritize second, and delegate. Like, you do not have to do it all yourself. Many hands make light work. It's really, really important to then get other people involved in that. So one, it takes the stress off you, but sometimes you get better ideas when you invite other people. That's certainly my experience. So yeah, plan, prioritize, delegate. That's how I maintain what sanity I have left.
Excellent. Any other best practices that you guys have? I can share some of mine too. Like, I love the magic of the holidays, and I definitely am that like person who goes over the top with stuff. Just in general, we'd go really hard for Halloween more so than these holidays, but but part of that then is I take a break through November, and we call it like our thankful month. And we don't do I shouldn't say we don't have big Thanksgiving, which they exist. We just don't go to them. Me and my husband and my son, we travel, and we spend just the time, the three of us, to kind of sit in that. And we look at active service for the people we care about. So this year we made cookies out of our Halloween candy, and we make these little cards that like he explains why he's thankful for everybody, which is really fun because he's 6.5. So like having those moments to really settle in for a minute, and like his ideas of why he's thankful for people is just really fun. Like it's like, oh, they're fun, or like my cousin cuts his hair, so he's like, well, Auntie KK makes my hair look cool. Remember that one time she gave me a mohawk, and like he had his little girlfriend, and I'm like, well, why are you thankful for her? And he quote unquote says, I don't know, he's like, I don't know. I'm like, well, why is she your girlfriend? And he goes, I don't know. I have to ask her. And I'm like, what? Like a man response. But then I was like, well, is she nice? And he's like, oh yeah, she's really, really nice. She's never hurt my feelings ever my whole life. And so just watching that process, that really helps me set up then for the craziness of December, and like making sure that we take the time to spend time as just like our family unit and giving back and that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. What a great way to raise him around, just conceptually with kids and gifts. He's going to remember the holidays being an opportunity to share. That's beautiful.
Thank you. I mean, he still is like, oh, this is what I want. Do I get gifts? But there's a balance there for sure. And we try to like go through his toy box before, and like I know in like earlier he's kind of getting it like, oh, I'm outgrowing some of these things. I can give them to other people, whereas like the past couple years it'd be like, oh, this is a broken toy, so I'm done with it. I'm like, no, like we don't just give the broken toys, we give the toys that you're outgrowing and that you can still, there's still life in them for somebody. So that's something that we really focus on. But any other best practices that you guys have, self-care tips through the holidays or just through the year working in the industry? How do you guys kind of stay centered?
I'm with them with planners. I have my girl boss planner here from 2022 all the way to 2025. And so planning is the number one key. I mean, when we have busy schedule. I think everyone in the transportation industry has a busy schedule. So we have to plan out every second, every moment, every hour, and plan time for ourselves. That was something that I didn't do for a while. And I learned that we have to give ourselves a time to take a break, So
I definitely feel like
Absolutely.
even to add on to that, it's really remembering just to give yourself grace and to give yourself patience and to understand that you are not Superwoman and you cannot do it all the time without getting burnt out. And I feel like also having a very supportive, whether it's a team, whether it's a family, whether it's friend group or what have you, that understands that you're always like on the go and is willing to help you with whatever you need. I feel like that's just as important also.
I love that. I think part of what I do too is I try to have a supportive network like inside my work life, like, but also people who don't care at all about my work life. Like people who are like, that's great, you're doing good things, cool, but like let's talk about anything else besides the supply chain. Like and like I find both of those things really helpful because sometimes we can be so absorbed in work, and when we like some of my best friends are TMSA members, and so like we can just talk about that stuff all day every day, but also being able to separate and doing other stuff I think is great. Okay. So our next segment is the random question of the day, which is sponsored by Isometric Technologies. And we're going to play a video. Isometric Technology, the ultimate freight broker secret weapon. With ISO, you'll have access to industry-wide performance benchmarks, dynamic scorecards, and powerful analytics to gain insights into your service strengths, addressing your weaknesses, and differentiate your carrier network from the competition. To learn more and get started, visit www.iso.io today. You can see that at the bottom of the screen. But they sponsor the random question of the day, which is one of my favorite segments to do here on Word on the Street. But so as women, we are generally more aware and sensitive to feelings and differences and navigating uncomfortable situations in the workplace at times. So I'm kind of wondering, how have you taken some of those lessons that you learned to help facilitate inclusion in other areas? And how do you bring some of that forward? We're all different, but we can be more inclusive. And what kind of steps have you taken to do that?
Yeah, I think this is really important. And I've been having some really good conversations with people lately, and Jennifer, of course, being one of them. Generational diversity is really a topic that's close to my heart. So coming into the business as a 20-year-old, and this is back in the 90s, like my joke is I remember when the fax machine was cool. I'm one of the only women in the industry at that time, period, right? So I had those battles to face, and we've kind of heard that it's still a thing. But also as a thing is this generational difference, right? There's always been like we've got 4 and 5 generations in the workplace now. And that's not necessarily new, but it's such a thing now. And I guess I have millennial children and I have Gen Z children, and they keep me young and informed, right? So as a Gen Xer, I'm right in the middle of the young, and I also am, like my parents are boomers. And it kind of frustrates me when there's this concept of like millennials only care about food and social media, and boomers are, like put them out to pasture. Like, I think those things are just really horrific perspectives. And as women, because of what we've gone through in our own space and trying to create space for ourselves and others, I think it's really important that we very first be aware and understand that the boomers and millennials and Gen Z, everyone has something to offer. And we're so much better together if we stop trying to be so divisive. So as far as tips and tricks, I don't have any other than be a human, be aware of the situation. Don't join in when somebody's hating on a group or a person, right? Every person who's coming to the table has something to offer. And so that generation thing is kind of there are things that can create differences all the time, right? Race, religion, politics, where you grew up. Do you like sports? We had that conversation, right? I think just being aware, for starters, of our differences and embracing that it's the foundation for the beginning.
Great. Yeah, I think a lot about generations in the workplace too. That was a conversation that we had, and I read this really great book that I reference all the time that talks about generations in the workplace. It's a new type of diversity, and like you said, there's 5 different generations that are currently working, and I think understanding that everybody has a different path to like get to the workplace is important. And like that was something that I really sat in. Like, people that are currently coming into the workforce haven't all had a job before. So I think about all of those like people lessons that I had as when I worked at a donut shop through most of my like high school, even in college years, and how I was able to deal with people from different ethnicities, different cultures, really understanding like the customer. That's where I developed my customer service voice and what to do when you so I dropped an entire tray of sprinkled donuts. Let me tell you, that's one of the worst experiences in life, because the sprinkles just go everywhere and it's a mess. But like my coworker helped me clean it up. Actually, she cleaned the whole thing up. She sent me in the back so I could like chill out for a second and like deal with that. I learned to work alone. I learned to work with other people. I learned how to talk to adults that weren't my professors or my parents. All of these life skills they just don't have. And if we can understand that and like think about that, like, oh, maybe they're not just like lazy. They just might not know the proper protocols for office environments because they haven't had them before.
That's so true.
That's
like go ahead, Lori.
This whole thing, this is absolutely key. So we are really lucky that we have, all 5 generations, tiny team, right? We're growing right now. We're at 30. We're going to about 70 next year. And we're really lucky that we get to focus on all the facets of diversity. I tell folks, I'm like, there's many different ways to talk about it. I'm talking gender, skin color, age, sexual identifiers. I want all of them in the team fully represented. Currently, I'm only one shy of all of our armed forces, our veterans on staff. I'm trying to I'm trying to get everybody in, because the reasons you show up to these places is the value that you add to what we have and for our customers. And we have some folks, newer on staff, and I see them buddying up of like, if it's your first job, you start out maybe a little uncomfortable, not knowing how to speak to other adults. Someone's adultier adult than you, and you don't realize that your voice has equal weight here. And titles aren't necessarily something that super matter at Optimus. What matters is the impact you drive to the customer. So I need your voice just as loud as this other person, whether they have 30 years experience in the industry or not, because you're seeing something differently. You are out touching that truck, cranking that wrench, and I need to know what you saw that has just as much weight as anything else you see here. And so that balance, sometimes people forget that, and tenure comes first. So I personally adore startups. I love really small because it allows each person to bring their full facet with them at conversations. And if things get difficult, I think a lot of people, we go platitudes. Let's talk about the difficult stuff. When it gets difficult, it's all about, okay, what are we feeling right now? What are we feeling? What needs to be addressed and understood here? And a lot of times let's walk back through what was said, how it was said, what was the physicality of it, and where are these responses coming from? Because usually if there is a difference of opinion, there's a big eye-opening moment in some difficult conversations that as leaders or just as professionals, if you can just say, hey, let's look at this thing. That thing happened. Let's have like a conversation. You start to get more clarity across the org. And then those bonds somehow get stronger. You know, before something's broken, it feels infallible. Once it's broken, people are like, what's happening? Mm-hmm. And when you work together to rebuild it, all of a sudden, you know, what you build, you have buy-in for. And when you build that growth back together, all of a sudden teams are operating more efficiently. And for us, that means our customers get access to better solutions. So it's a fun place to be.
I love so much about what you're saying, especially like wanting to bring the different voices to the table, because I think that's what's most impactful and so powerful. I think when we talk about these issues, people are like, oh, we don't always know different perspectives or how to do it. But it's like part of it's just like being more inclusive in your own team and hearing those voices and then being able to execute to your customers a little bit differently because you have those internal voices and listening to everybody. Really great stuff, Lori.
I want to add to that because She Trucking is one of the most diverse communities like that's on social media. We have 30,000 women in the industry, and we have every race, every gender, every age, and we support them all equally. And so the challenge that as being a minority in the industry, when I go to different places, is not as diverse, you know. So sometimes we come out of our community, right, and then you step into the trucking industry and you drive to a new city, a new city, and I've been the only Black person in the room, you know, and it can be kind of awkward because it's not always an invite. So people are not always a nice, like we are in the South, for instance, right? And say hello, you know, and just speak and just welcome you in. So that, but I've seen the industry get so much better. I mean, over time now we have it's very diverse. And I'm just like excited because inclusion, as you spoke about, is the most important piece. Bringing different people together for one goal and purpose is the most important part. And so right now, if everyone is listening, I want to invite you all to join She Trucking because and support the women in the industry, because we actually have the heart of the drivers. We actually, I'm sorry to put my promo in right now, but it's because we need to support our women in the industry. I hear a lot of times, let's bring more women in, but we got to take care of them while they're here.
Yes,
that's the important piece to it.
I think that's incredibly important, is to how do we support people? Like I even think about like creating safe space for people. So for our drivers, like what is that experience to be a female driver? I'm sure we could take up the rest of the time you talking about that. But just even like, I think of the accommodations that we give our young students who are neurodivergent or who have like learning differences, but how are we then evolving that into the workplace? So at TMSA, we deal with like sales and marketing people. So it's like a lot of people in the office, but like when we think about the culture holistically in the supply chain, what are we doing to actually support different types of people? How are we being inclusive? One of the things that I'll hear, so at TMSA, we launched a DEI initiative early this year. Whitney's on that committee. So we talk a lot about how do we become more inclusive? How do we do this? But one of the things, like the pieces of pushback we'll get is like, oh, well, we aren't having those candidates come to us. But it's like, well, what language are you using in your job descriptions? Like, how are you actually being inclusive and making people want to work for and with you? And I think that's like a huge piece of the puzzle, is actually like taking an internal audit of what you're actually doing and how can you improve in these areas.
That's so true. I'll say one of the things my kids, so I've got 26, 19, and 18 as of yesterday, ages. Freight Vana, putting in a bit of a plug, but they have an incredible social media presence, and it's very intentional, very open. They're very supportive of everyone having their own brand identity. You know, do as little or as much as you want, but it's attracting different kinds of people because of that support. And historically, When I was in a space where social media was very heavily managed, was one common voice, one common message, it was very restrictive, right? To if other people are starting to look for jobs, this is how we get a fresh workplace. This is how we get new ideas in. You want to attract people by being authentic, right? Not being like so controlled in your message. I just think Freightvana, Beta, like a lot of companies are really just trying to be their real, put forth their real selves out here. And that is so different than it was many years ago. I absolutely love it. It's just really, really cool to see this transformation.
Yeah, and someone mentioned, I think it was you, Sharae, who mentioned the job descriptions and like the gendered, like the bias wording. Kat Matfield has a phenomenal gender decoder. So anyone who's listening, if you're like, I wonder if ours are, look up, it's like gender-decoder catmatfield.com, something like that. Check that out. All you do is you plug and play your JDs and you can understand what language might be there, because none of us can pretend that we understand what it's like to be, another color, another gender, any of that, and say, this is the lens that I'm looking at this in. But we can use some tools that allow us that lens in a different way. And it helps us just cut some language that isn't getting us the right spread. A lot of times when we do talk DEIB policies, people say, I don't know where to find them. I don't know how. You don't have to be that helpless. Okay? First of all, there's plenty of people out there. We don't have to play that game. There's also just a quick AI tool. If you're not going to talk to other people, there's literally a website you just go to and plug it in. And you make sure that even your descriptions are inclusive and allow people to come to you that way. And then you assess, top talent accordingly.
I love Lori's point of that. Of like, you don't have to be that helpless. I think especially as women, we have a superpower of empathy, or at least most of us do. And we bring that to the workforce. And it doesn't matter what level you sit in within an organization, you can still offer that. And so for those of us that have found ourselves in a space where we can make an impact, what I found is if you don't know where to get started, ask the question. It's not a bad question. It's not an embarrassing thing to get started. Nobody has the expectation that you should have this nailed down. Everybody is learning and evolving, and we're accepting and growing. And so I think the best thing that we can do is ask with the intention to understand, view each person as a human being, right? Like not a boss, not a coworker, not a whatever their title is, but as a whole person. And then create space for those answers, both from other people that maybe you're seeking advice from, but from the people around you as well. What I found is if you ask, people will speak up. If you can find a way to create a safe space of I genuinely want to know what your thoughts are in this. I genuinely want to know what's going on in your life right now. I want to know how I can be supportive of you. A lot of people, that's really all they need to start to open that conversation and have a little bit of vulnerability and honesty.
Yes. And Lori, you were talking about before, like how titles don't matter. You want everyone's voices and opinion. And I think that's really important, because I do think employees are happy when they understand their piece of the puzzle and that their voices do matter. And in that book that I was reading, it talked about how people coming into the workforce right now too, like you think about all of like the things that they've seen on the news of what these big titles, like the presidents and the CEOs, like all these like kind of bad things that people at that level have done, like the news exposure to that, they don't have a innate trust in leadership that used to exist in the past, like when other generations came into the workplace. So putting that emphasis that your opinion matters, we respect what you say, and building trust and relationships in the workplace becomes incredibly valuable, even more so than it used to. Yeah. Okay. That was a really meaty question. So thank you to our sponsors for sponsoring that random question of the day. One question that I have for you guys, something that we like to do at Word on the Street, is thanking all of our special guests who come in and share your valuable advice for us. So we're wanting to know if you guys would like, we want to give you some swag. So we'll pull up what our coffee mugs look like and our water bottles, and you guys can pick one of each. So this is the Word on the Street coffee mug. And then this is the Word on the Street water bottle. So you guys, what do you think? Which one would you guys like? Are you coffee drinkers? Are you water?
I'm definitely a coffee drinker.
Okay, so Megan's in for the coffee. I'm a both drinker. I have both of those things. They don't send them to me anymore because I have all things. What about you, Lori? What are you thinking? Water bottle or coffee mug?
I'm a tea gal. Tea or die. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so we'll do the coffee mug. We'll call it a tea mug for you.
Yeah.
Whitney?
I do coffee and tea. So
Okay, so the mug, Regan?
I'm a water bottle gal. I'll take the
Okay.
water bottle.
And Sharae?
Water bottle as well.
Perfect. Our producer is taking those notes and we'll send those all to you. She may be asking you what your addresses are, but we will not publicly ask you those questions because people don't need to know that. Just a few announcements in the show. So we are big supporters at Wreath Across America. Actually, the beta team is actually doing an event there next week. But if you're interested in getting involved in that, the website's right there, wreathacrossamerica.org. We're also supporters of the Manifest Show, which is in Las Vegas, February 5th through 7th in 2024 next year. And if you click on this link, you will get a $200 discount off your ticket price. I have a whole list that Trey sends me of the things I need to say. So let me just keep running through this super quick. The Broker Carrier Summit in Kansas City is coming up in April 2024. You can register for that at brokercarriersummit.com. He so nicely puts this plug in for the 2024 TMSA Elevate Conference, which is June 9th through 11th in 2024 in New Orleans. Our early bird registration is up for that. We're super pumped about this event, specifically because next year is TMSA's 100-year anniversary. So we are celebrating all kinds of exciting things. But one of the things that TMSA is doing right now that is in prep for this, which is actually really exciting, Whitney, you're here because we're about to talk about the Community Give Back Project. So one of the things that we do that Whitney actually started for us this year in Savannah was a Community Give Back project. So at our Elevate conference in 2023, we made tie blankets for the local children's hospital in Savannah. And one of the things that we heard was that people wanted to do more and to get more involved. So we announced our partnership for New Orleans with the Covenant House for next year, but we're doing a holiday gift drive now through December 15th. So that link there will give you more information on how you can be participating in that gift drive. We have just under 40 items right now, which is very exciting. We've never done anything like this before. So we're excited to give back to that organization that supports so many people. So Whitney didn't even know I was going to talk about that, but she is a TMSA board member, and this is like her unofficial role at TMSA is that she helps us give back to. Yes, Carol, TMSA is in North Olmsted, Ohio, which is really close to Parma, Ohio, which, fun fact, is where I grew up. So feel free to reach out to me and talk to me about all things Parma. I was going to say all things pierogies because that is a very Parma thing to say. But anywho, so now that we've gotten through all of the things that I needed to make sure I say to keep my job as guest host of Word on the Street, we're going to head into another discussion point, which I think is very timely. It's talking about making resolutions that actually last. I feel like as we head into any new year, people are like, oh, I want to do all these 800 million things, but how do we actually stay accountable to that? What do you guys do? How do you set realistic goals? Do you have dream boards? Do you have like a goal setting software? What is your advice to how people can stay on track? There's a lot to unpack. There's a lot of Jen ramble. Thank you for bearing with me through that.
I love vision boards. So that's my number one thing. That's how I started She Trucking. I started with a vision board. I actually had a camera in my semi truck, and they asked me, "What are you doing?" And I said, "It's my vision board. I'm writing on it." And so I'm a big planner when it comes to vision boards, manifesting and making your dreams come true. And so that's my number one thing is the vision board.
I try to pick one thing to do in December and not wait. And that way, when the new year comes around, I already feel like I've accomplished something. And it's sort of like the whole thing of if you're going to make your to-do list, write one thing that's either really easy or that you're in the middle of doing, go ahead and cross it off. It makes you feel really good about where you're at. And so, I pick one thing instead of like a New Year's resolution. It's a right now, so that by the new year, I've either learned from it already, or it's something that I can keep pushing forward and add to.
I would probably add on to what Whitney just said right now. So I had to take a health class called Health Promotion when I was back in undergrad. And my professor at the time, she taught us SMART goals, SMART. So it's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time sensitive. And I think that whenever it comes to whatever aspect of whatever you're doing, whether it's personal, whether it's work related, let's just say you have the month of December and you're utilizing that acronym for how you want to, give yourself that timeline in order to do something. I feel like in a sense it helps you compartmentalize whatever you're trying to do at that point in time and make it where it feels like the results are more tangible than you thinking that you're not actually doing something. I've applied that to, to projects, to work, to personal life, to personal changes that I've wanted to go through on my own. And it's probably been the easiest way for me to keep track of my progress and also just to feel like I'm actually accomplishing something.
I love that. I think a lot of people use SMART goals for business, but they don't always think to apply it in their personal life. And then just one thing to add that I found this year in all the initiatives for DEI for TMSA is that there's now like a additive to the SMART goals, and it's called SMARTY goals. And so it's all those things that you just listed, but also adding the inclusive and equitable onto the end of that. And I feel like that's really powerful and impactful when you're thinking, okay, we're doing all these things, but then are we making sure that it is inclusive and equitable as well? And then setting goals for that, which was really something powerful that I learned this year. So that is my add-on to your add-on.
We've all got a system. Everybody has a system. We've all got it. I think if you show up to any of our houses, you'll see a little system of how we function with our lives. My system is, I call it the 5-4-3. I made it up because I didn't like anything else. So I find great joy in reading James Clear's work, Atomic Habits. I deeply love the way he does things because it taps into the human psyche and why you're doing things. I also love a lot of Daniel Pink's work on like when and timing and regret. And it just helps you understand why when you set a goal, like you can't achieve it. If you have ever set a goal for yourself and year over year, month over, it's just not happening. I love when I can use data decisions to follow through of why I am the way I am. And the 5-4-3 is my way. I don't really do New Year's resolutions. I just do like, where do I want to be in a year? That kind of like, what is future Lori? How is she different? And I don't trust myself with the year, kind of like internally in teams, right? You have a long goal and everybody breaks it out smaller. Instead of treating me like a business and doing quarterly though, I break it up into what is achievable in the next 5 months. That's it. And then at that 5-month point, I audit it and I say, what have I done? What haven't I done? Because if I haven't even started it, do I actually care? And like, is past Lori really smart enough to tell me what future Lori is going to be? Because Lori's going to make the choice. Who do I want to be next? And then I have 4 months to get it done. And if I can't do it in 4, then it's a real come to Jesus, because all I've got left in a year is 3 months at that point. So I break my life up into 5-4-3, and it's that kind of goal. And sometimes I blow it out of the water and I get to be like, hey girl, you did it. Like what? Like we're really killing it. And other times I haven't even looked at it and I've allowed myself to float. And to me, that's mediocrity seeping in, because if I set that goal, it's where I want it to be. So I really just have a comeuppance with myself. I'm big on door closes when you're alone in the bathroom looking in the mirror. And at the end of the day, it's just your head on that pillow. So if I made that choice by myself for me and I have to look at me every day, you bet I'm not going to be disappointed. So I break it up into those pieces, and I use some of these people have pulled in this like really strong data to show me why the psyche is the way it is and why I just can't get a fire lit under my tush. And then I use that to drive that kind of growth that I want. And I just set it on my calendar. It literally, if you pop into my calendar, there's just at month 5, it just says 5. On the last day, it just says 5. And that tells me today's the day. You got to actually audit. Have you changed who you are? Or are we really going to stay as we are? And it's usually sobering to realize.
Speaking of change, I'll be 40 next year. So it's I'm excited to see what this next year brings.
No, be so excited. Sharae.
I'm excited. It's gonna and so make sure you come to my birthday. No, just playing.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, I do want to say one of the things that we are planning, speaking of planning, is our Diamonds and Pearl Banquet. It is a fundraising event for our scholarship program. We try to give out 5 scholarships every year to drivers. And so it will be in Chattanooga, Tennessee on May the 25th. Right now, we are auctioning off a guitar by Ashley Brady. It's on our website, and you can definitely that goes towards our initiative for our scholarships. So that is one of the things that we are planning and are excited about kicking off here soon. So you've heard it first, exclusive right here on the podcast.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that. The only advice I have I could have a lot of advice, but one of the pieces that stuck with me was something actually like my therapist told me. And because I always am like, oh, I failed. And then she's like, you didn't fail, like use it as like an actual learning opportunity. Like if you didn't achieve the goal, why didn't you achieve it? Like I have very like aspirational goals for myself. I probably set them too high, and like what steps did I need? Like, do I actually need to take? So I took everything that I used to consider like a failure as an actual like learning opportunity, which was a really perspective change for me. But it really helped. And instead of because then you view yourself as a failure and then you don't want to continue going on, or not yourself as a failure, but like that particular thing that you were working for, like you failed at it. I don't think I'm a failure. Should preference that. But like that particular piece, but instead of like, okay, like what steps do I need to take? So I think, Lori, it's like kind of what you're saying, but it's just yours like a much more formulated version of it. Like, oh, okay, like check into this, like come to Jesus. What does this look like? Like, how do you kind of move forward? But that was a big...
I'm a systems gal. I want the data. I want the system. I want to know why I am the way I am.
Mm-hmm.
I love who I am, but I want to know why I am this way. That helps me make a lot more sense of some of the choices and some, that gut feeling. I'm a very good EQ's real high. We're trying to get that IQ to meet up with it, and I just really want that balance.
Okay, so we have time for a game. And normally when we play games somewhere in the street, they get very aggressive. But on the ladies' editions, I like us to play as a team because we want to support each other. So this game, we have a video. Hit the cue, producer. So that is our cue. Shout out to Betas, Natalia, and Morgan, who do all of the behind the scenes stuff for this team. They're wonderful to work with. And I love that I get to come in once a quarter and work with them. So the game is Who Said That? And they're going to play a note of a song, and we have to see if we can guess the song. And then if we can't base it off a note, then they'll play a little bit more. Because often when we play these games, I scream that I need more hints. And so they have adapted that for us.
Sounds really hard.
Yeah. So first round, give us our note. Oh, it is dug my key into the side. It's Carrie Underwood.
Carrie Underwood.
Before he cheats. I may have sang that song at karaoke many times in my college years. Great. Okay. I will not jump. I'm used to playing these games. I'll let other people speak first next time. Round 2.
Mariah Carey.
Oh,
What?
that was good. That was
Oh my
fast.
gosh.
Okay. Oh,
Oh, that was
Brittany. That's Brittany. Oh my god.
okay.
Oh, Beyonce.
Beyonce.
Oh.
I think there's one more. We have one more.
Is that it?
I'm just gonna guess Taylor. You're doing all the queens. So I'm gonna say Taylor
Yeah.
Swift. I'm gonna say Gaga. I'm gonna say Celine.
Yeah.
I don't. What are you doing?
Can you? Oh, I think we need more.
Celine Dion.
Celine, near far.
Oh, my heart will go on.
Oh my gosh.
A dreamy Leo DiCaprio in his youth. I know that was Celine Dion, but I'm thinking of Titanic.
Mhm.
Also, this is very random, but one time I was on a cruise and they played that song like for dinner, and I'm like, I feel like that's not the song you should.
That's
be
an
singing.
ominous song to be playing.
Yes, I was like you should not play a single song from Titanic when you're on a cruise ship. That just sounds like
Your trip's getting exciting.
right. I was like, I kept being like, what are you doing? Who makes these choices? But,
Oh my gosh.
okay. We are running up to the end of our ladies' word on the dish. And I told you guys when we started, this moves very fast. But are there any last tips, tricks, things that you want to say? Last thoughts? You guys have been a wonderful group of ladies. I'm so happy to have you here. But are there any closing thoughts that you guys have?
I want to echo Megan. Something she said today is something I'm going to take with me into 2024 is to give ourselves grace. I've heard that before, but the way that you package that just really hit me today. So I want to thank you for that. But I guess in your day, in your family, in your job, in your future, give yourself grace. You guys are all amazing. I'm amazing. And I'm going to give myself some grace.
Love that.
Love to hear it.
No one has any other closing thoughts? Okay. Well, we had so many good conversations, dove into so many things. I think my closing thoughts, yeah, I agree. I think it's hard as women to, like, I think, Megan, you said this too. Like, we're not superhuman. And that is something that I often have to remind myself of. And to just, take a pause and live life and remember that we're people first. And that can be a really challenging thing.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you guys all for appearing on the show. I love these female editions. Not that I don't love the guys. And one of my favorite thing is that if you see like all of the comments that have come in, so many of those are our normal street crew guys, and the support of that is fantastic. So thank you guys all for participating in the Female Word on the Street. If you guys are interested in being in a Female Word on the Street or a regular edition, you can reach out to us at Natalia's at hello@betaconsultinggroup.com. People can, I think that's the email address, or you can find me on LinkedIn and I will get you connected. But thank you guys all for being here. I appreciate
Thank you, Jennifer.
I hope you guys have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Hi, ladies.
Jennifer. And phenomenal.